So first of all, I need to tell you all a little bit of a story, because on the 24th of May 2022, this young gentleman in the middle turned around to me and he said to me, I'm working on this great idea of a story. And he said, this film that I'm currently working on, Care, and The Magician, what if this universe met on an island? And here you are, 3 years later, 3 years and 1 day later, with that. So thank you very much, first of all, for, in my mind, just, give me that, for bringing it home.
It's absolutely true.
So thank you very much for that. I'm going to do about this slightly differently, because I've interviewed you about 500 times on this film. So the first question, and the thing that I've always meant to ask you, is the Canary Islands are a magical place if you pick the right places to go.
Yeah.
What came first, the location or the story?
Story, but I had once been there, and it was tickling away, and it was an excuse to go on cut out the coupons on the back of the Sun, another holiday, and then I did the final drafts with that particular town in mind. Yeah.
Excellent. So let's go back to the origins of the story, where you are, and I think also there's probably some reflective aspects of your own life in this, I think, from some sort of conversations we've had over the years.
Yeah. So long story short, the wonders of lockdown, Sarah Jane wrote a little script and I dared her to make it. And that was a short film called The Magician, and our first ever experience of an audience watching our stuff was at the Romford Film Festival with Sarah Jane's film The Magician, which I produced and did everything except direct it. And she won every festival she went near. It was amazing, and it won Best Short Film here. It was very encouraging. And then I was doing a master's degree in screenwriting, again, that came out of lockdown and something to do to use the time. An online course, and my first short film I wrote, we sort of dared ourselves to make that as well, and that became this film Care, and that was screened here and got the audience award here, and then so about 3 years ago I did literally wake up one morning, this is true, and had to run for a pen and paper, and I wrote down 3 A4 sheets of paper, and genuinely it was like the lead character, the magician. The Magician is a sort of silent film. There's no hint that she is mute in The Magician, but it just so happens she doesn't speak, the lead character in The Magician. And Care was about a care worker caring for the elderly who was going through a terrible time in his marriage and his life. And they sort of had sex in my brain and produced. I woke up in the morning and this sort of 3 sheets of A4 idea also sprung from I'd been working as an actor again, and those conversations you have with unit drivers, the people who pick you up and make sure you arrive, you tell strangers sometimes, or you sit next to someone on an aeroplane or on a holiday, you find yourself sharing stuff you wouldn't even tell your best friends sometimes. All of that came together to like these 2 grieving people from the short films. What if they helped each other gently? But to be honest, that 3 pages of A4 hasn't really shifted. It had about 12 drafts, the script. But so that's how that's the genesis, but it takes 3 years, and I did 14 months of prep personally for this, and fundraising and, all of the madness, but God, and it's very, very strange now to see it with an audience. That is the idea, though.
Anne, where did you get pulled into this?
Well,
right.
well, it wasn't for the money.
Yet.
Well, I first met Joe when we were working on Stephen Fry's adaptation of Cinderella for the Old Vic. And Joe was great fun to work with. He was Prince Charming. What can I say? And he was just really good fun to work with, and he just worked so hard on this thing, and he showed up for everything, and he was always well prepared. And so I liked him very much, and then we sort of kept in touch variously over the years. And then I saw him in Noises Off. He was doing Noises Off in the West End. And again, a performance of great energy and commitment, which he had to fall downstairs at least once.
Yeah.
And he said to me, I'm writing this film, and, I'd just like to talk to you about the music. And I said, oh, yeah, for any time. And so it was almost a disaster, actually, because he sent me the script. He also sent me the 2 short films that he'd made and a synopsis of the script and all sorts of things, great big package. And it just happened, I was really busy at the time. And I thought, well, I can't look at it yet, but I'll look at it on Wednesday afternoon. And Joe's coming round on Thursday, so it'll all be fine, and we'll have a good old chat then. So I'm working away on what I'm working on a Tuesday, and the doorbell goes, and it's Joe, full of the joys of spring, and I'm thinking, I haven't read a thing. So I thought he's going to think I'm so rude. He's going to think I'm so big time and awful. I haven't read a thing. And he was very charming, and we sort of had a little chat and a cup of tea. And then the next day I read it all, and I thought, oh, actually, this is really good. Really good. What an interesting idea. A character that doesn't speak, and somebody who talks too much, and they both sort of give something to each other. At the end of it, they're different people to what they were in the beginning. And I thought, what a wonderful journey that this film makes in a very sort of simple way. And I said, Joe, yes, I definitely want to get involved. And this is why I'm here now.
Joe was very excited after his meeting with you, sending me voice notes.
Saying she's so awful, she hasn't even read it.
She's amazing. He's like, he's amazing. You're no stranger to film, are you? You've won a couple of awards, haven't you?
Yeah, well, if you hang around long enough, they give you stuff. But I think the different thing about this was, I do a lot of, I'm lucky enough to have done quite a few films and TV. And then when you do the music and you send it off, and then, people do what they will with it. They mix it in their own way, or they put it in the wrong place, or they mix it too loud or too quiet, or they leave it out, or whatever. And this, getting involved more as a sort of producer on this one, it just gave me a chance to be more involved, to see the whole thing through. And I thought, well, what I can bring to the table is experience in post-production, because Joe knows what he's doing on set. There's no way that I would interfere with anything to do with the acting and the directing. But post-production, I've been involved in for 30, 40 years, so sound is my thing. And so I thought, well, I could, and together with Roger, my husband, who's my engineer, I'm at the back there, I thought, well, we could contribute something to this. And it's so great. Actually, I'm really enjoying this whole process of coming and talking about it to people and seeing it with people and feeling much more of an ownership to it than you do if you just do a job. Because you feel, oh, yes, this is something that I've seen from start to finish. Obviously it's Joe's baby, but I feel I adopted it at some stage and I'm helping bring it up.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It is crazy. I went to Anne's asking, literally, would you just let my brother's going to try and write. I didn't dare ask Anne to write the score. I think we were hinting at the fact this is an Oscar-winning composer, and I'm making a film with sellotape and glue. So I was not about to ask her to write the score, but I was just saying, could my brother, who's a singer-songwriter and whose song is at the end of the film, could he perhaps, he's going to have a go at writing the score. Could you be our music advisor? And could we put you on the credits as music advisor? It would mean a lot to us, And I had come 2 days early.
Yes.
And was incredibly polite. There's being on time, then there's coming on a Tuesday instead of a Thursday.
Joe is always early for everything, which is a good trait.
But anyway, when it went from would you be our music advisor, yes, maybe, to Anne loving the script and seeing, I think, how a score can speak for a central character, and that doesn't happen often. It really is a voice, it's someone's actual voice, to being not only that, but a proper co-producer. I mean, Roger, Anne and I, but these two in particular, went off and did evening classes in producing at Rain Dance, and contracts, and helped to, just my fairy godmother and godfather really on this. So yeah, so just to make sure Anne's not being too humble, I won't let her get away with it. It has been complete joint ownership, second half of this and going forwards, yeah.
So David, I'm not going to ask how you came to be part of this project, but I'm going to ask how you came to meet Joe and what stemmed from that.
Yeah, well, Joe and myself we met on a production of The Talented Mr. Ripley before it was a film. Yeah. About a year before it was a film. Yeah. It was a play, and yeah, we bonded. I think it was a good production. It was down at Watford, and it was a good production, but it was a chaotic production full of incidents. I got the shit kicked out of me. I got my ribs broken on 2 separate nights. I remember.
Not by me.
Not by Joe. But it was sort of a little bit like, I think, 19-year-olds going off to war. We were sort of bonded by the chaos and the friction of this mad production. And we kept in touch over the years, but we haven't had a chance to work together since. And, our careers kind of went in at different paces and into different realms. And I guess I was at a point in my life not hugely dissimilar to Bill. And Joe had come around to this incredible idea and gave me a call one night, and I'm just listening to you talk about Lanzarote, which came first. I had been to Lanzarote a year beforehand and had no idea why I'd gone. I just went with a friend, and I was there going, why the hell am I here? And went on the bus trip and saw all of the stuff that the two of us see in the film. And over the phone call that I had with Joe, I realised, that's why I was there. That's why I was there.
So much of that in this.
And it's really interesting, because these meetings 20 years ago, like I keep thinking of film as, people often say you give birth to a film. I think it's even weirder than that. I think it's like, film is like IVF. It's like, it's a series of bereavements unless the thing happens.
Right.
There are so many stages that a film will just stop and never get made. Yeah. Or get made and never get seen. Or get seen and never be appreciated. Yeah. And it just seems with this.
This one wanted to be born.
It wanted to be born. That it was kind of conceived in a little test tube 20 years ago.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. True.
Yeah, we also bumped into each other. Around about the time I was doing the first draft of this, I had 2 days work on a Marvel TV show, which was so secretive. You'd signed in blood in this NDA form, where it's called just Undisclosed Marvel Project. And my 2 pages were so weird that I couldn't, it certainly didn't say, which a superhero's names. I was like, I don't know what this is. Signed the thing, I said to my agent, so what am I in? What's the thing? She went, we don't know. We have no idea. I flew to Budapest in the hotel. Nothing in the pack they gave me had a clue, just undisclosed project thingy. I'm in there going, this is it. I'm actually getting a bit insulted. I'm a fucking adult. I've signed your forms. Tell me what the fucking show I'm in, And I'm in the foyer and I see David Ganly. And now everything shoots in Budapest. So there's no reason to think, but I said, what are you doing here? What are you doing? He said, I'm on this. He was like,
I'm not Marvel show.
I went, what the fuck is it? And even then he went, meet me down here in 1 hour, we'll go for a coffee. And we walked across Budapest, had a secret coffee, and he told me what fucking show I was in. He asked what I was doing. He said, that's actually quite an important scene. And so it was a thing called Moon Knight. But weirdly, I was at that time sort of sketching out the first draft, so David was very much landed in my imagination from there as well. About that timing.
Timing.
Yeah.
it's great how these things sort of intersect with each other.
Yeah.
And I guess that's going to lead me to the 3-minute performance that kind of steals the show, which is Sharon Deuce.
Sharon Deuce, ladies and gentlemen.
How did you get her involved in this?
Well, that's a blessing. That's a massive blessing. So I've known Sarah Jane and I have to use, sadly, the past tense, were married for 12 years. It's another story in another film. But Sharon Deuce is just one of her oldest best friends. So I've known Sharon through Sarah Jane for 12 years. And we get on so well. I just adore her. And when I wrote the script, you always have people in mind. Obviously, I wrote it for Sarah Jane, and I had Sharon absolutely in my head, but I hadn't told her about it. Now, godparent to Sarah Jane's son is Celia Imrie. Now, of course, you're at the time of scrabbling around. We made this for an incredibly low budget. Genuinely. I hear a lot of people say that at film festivals, and you go into the foyer and you ask them, and they go, it was only 400 grand. You're like, fucking 400 grand. Anyway, you'd have a job getting a second-hand car for what we made this for. Anyway, but Celia read it, Celia Imrie, and really loved it. And I was like, you wouldn't do that though, would you? And she went, do you know what? I love it so much. Of course I will. I'll come and do that. I'd love to. I'm fed up of playing the super cameos, but that is a good one, and it's a week in Lanzarote, so go on. And so we were very chuffed because we had Celia, but there was a little bit of my heart was sad because, I always had in mind Sharon, and brilliantly, a couple of months, sadly, because Celia would have been amazing, of course. But it was meant to be, and because of visas and this and that, and Celia doesn't fly, Celia Imrie. So if you see her in American TV shows, you can just take it as read that she has gone by boat and train to Los Angeles to film them. It's amazing. It's where she writes all her books on these long journeys. But anyway, because of travel dates, which, she can't just zip out, that's a kind of week's journey there and a week's journey back for one scene. It just didn't work out for various reasons. And I was able to go to Sharon, and Sharon goes to, this I didn't know at the time, Sharon goes to Lanzarote every year of her life for the last 30 years. She was like our location manager once we got there. She knew it back to front. She'd go in a bar and they'd go, hello, Sharon. Amazing. Yeah, so it was all weirdly meant to be. Yeah.
The carnival scene,
yeah.
Was that luck, or did you specifically pick that time to
no
go
accidents?
Out
there are. I hope you think it was luck, but no, it was. I'm frighteningly organised. Organised chaos. So we did. I went. Elliot, the DOP, who's also my nephew. It's a homegrown thing. This. My cinematographer's nephew. He and I went out on a little recce exactly a year before. And I have to say something to low-budget filmmakers. This really mattered. So we went March 2023 because I knew I'd written a carnival. I knew there was one there in this town. We had to go and see it. So my nephew and I went to see this carnival, and we watched it. And the original script had that it was a really shit carnival, like a little town carnival, and it was embarrassing and funny. We got there on the recce and went, this is kind of amazing, actually. For such that's just Playa Blanca Carnival. It's not even one of the biggest towns on Lanzarote. So we had to. The reason this film happened, I think, is because we had a flag planted in the sand. We have to shoot this one night, a real carnival. We have to be there next year when this carnival happens. They don't announce the dates till near the time, but we knew the fortnight it would be in. So we were, by hook or by crook, this film was happening in those 2 weeks. So, for example, Celia Imrie is like, well, if you can wait 6 months, nope, we're doing it now. And then what we did is we went and dry rehearsed. So the weeks we were there, they were setting up the carnival, and we went, after we wrapped a day's shooting on other stuff, we went for a rehearsal with walkie-talkies, and we explained the whole thing. I said, look, this is where the barriers are. I will hold you. We had walkie-talkies and systems. Elliot, our DOP, is fearless. So we had we had a lot of locations on this, and we had permits for some of them. Not all of them. But Elliot just said, give me a flory jacket. They'll presume I'm the civic videographer. And so he just stood in the middle of the road with all the carnival goers, and sure enough, everyone just going, oh yeah, there's the guy doing the film. But I had a costume on. I had a big panda's head, so that we only had one take. So we rehearsed it, dry rehearsed it, and the actors knew that they would roll through. You would roll through just watching stuff, then you'd roll through the seeing Sharon over the road, then you'd roll through this. But I held the place at the fence with the walkie-talkie when it was all ready, and we had to time the girl coming down with the lollipop and everything all by... And I would just in this... So I'm sort of... The back of my head is there walking away, but basically they would come and Sarah Jane just tapped me in the ribs, and I knew to just... The panda left the scene, and they could take their place for real, you know. Because otherwise, it was such a... Keeping a place by the fence was very difficult. It was so busy. It's absolutely rammed. But I don't think anyone knew there was a film being shot.
But it was incredible as well, because you get...
you loved that.
No, I loved it. But you get that amazing shot of us just walking together and disappearing into the crowd. Like,
Well, that again, you know, talk about. Do you mind? Sorry, I haven't had coffee or cocaine. I mean, the budget was so low. We all stayed at the villa. There was a whole downstairs area with bedrooms that you can't see. We shot it out. That most of us stayed in, but our sound designer had to stay somewhere else because he's a grown up and he wasn't prepared to share a room, and that's totally all right. So we got him a cheap Airbnb in the town. And I'm everything. I was like location manager, I was unit driver, I was, you know, everything on this. So I rushed in prep week down to get the keys off this Airbnb guy, and I look, and I go around this flat, and I'm furious because we've got an amazing sound operator and designer, very cheap, and I wanted him to have a good time. He'd agreed such a low rate, and the digs were awful. They were just disgusting, and I was looking at the pictures on the app going, dude, this is not what you've advertised. Like, fucking take it or leave it. And I was just about to say, we'll leave it, I'll work something out. And I looked out of the window and went, oh, yeah, we'll take it. Because that amazing, it looks like some Universal Studios jib shot of them disappearing into the crowd was the tiny balcony on this little flat, which we would never have had that shot. And I was like, okay, so we'll take these. But the amount of happy accidents, you know, the coach trip was originally meant to be a day at a water park, and by hook or by crook it turned into the coach trip, and then I couldn't be on the coach trip for various reasons, so my DOP and I had prepped so hard, I literally left a 21-year-old in charge of all those scenes. Yeah. Everyone knew it so well, and they were literally, when I went, I couldn't be there, I was just sweating in a minibus somewhere nearby. And when I came back and watched the rushes, it was like, that's literally what I drew in my terrible storyboard. You got it. It's amazing. So everything just... Yeah,
you really turned up with the ice creams.
I turned up with the ice creams, exactly.
Good ice cream.
Yeah.
There's a bit that I really love, and I'm hopefully not ruining too much for audiences watching at home, but the scene with the flask and the cliff.
Yeah.
You know, that whole...
Oh, yeah.
That
amazing.
whole... Just when things can't get any worse.
Yeah.
This shit happens.
Yeah, that's it.
And I love the fact that you've made these nice, beautiful pinch points that a lot of filmmakers don't pick up on. You know, you've got the Sharon Juice section, which brings the audience the laughs.
Yeah.
And then you've got the flask, which brings everyone almost to tears. I heard people in the audience, and when I last saw it in an audience, people did the same thing. Fantastic, and that's obviously...
Well, God bless the Falmouth University master's degree in screenwriting. Highly recommend it. But I did, this was my final project on that. I cheekily used it as a way to get lots of script notes. I had all my peers, the other students, and a great professor, and I knew I'd get free notes, you know. So I did the first 2 drafts with that. And my professor, who's a wonderful man called John Finnegan, who really knows his stuff, I wouldn't say he hated it, but he was like, oh, it's so boring. That was his notes, was like, I only got to the end of this because I'm being paid. You know, you've got to, and I remember it was one of those moments where you've got, as an actor, it takes a while, but you learn to take the fucking note. And it's a really good discipline, because once I'd swallowed my pride, I didn't do what his suggestions were, because they were Not great. But what I did was I went away and applied a story map, which I'd written free, man. I'm an artist. Let me just write my script. And then I went draft 3. I literally applied the kind of story map for Die Hard. Literally, an action-adventure, explosive, mega blockbuster. I looked at all the traditional story points of that, and I made sure we had every single one. But instead of a helicopter exploding on page 45, we had, oh my God, she said yes to a cup of tea. But I knew it was exactly the same graph. So this has a graph that is quite structured, even though it sort of feels like a 3 colours blue art house French film. That's what I love. But actually, if you find out those directors, they actually really structured their stuff, you know. So it's interesting. It's a mixture of free-form stuff, and also it had a real spine, you know, the script.
But you were also so in tune with what you wanted to make.
Yeah.
Talk about, you know, that sequence with the flask and her going off on the walk, but the music underneath that, when you came to do a very rough edit of it.
Yeah.
Well, you had that music quite early on.
So early, before we shot.
Incredible song by this artist called Nathan Earl. It's just him and a guitar.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
Incredible.
it just gets me every time.
It's the wonders of Instagram. Now, I'm not I look. People think I'm a social media whore. I'm not. But I cannot describe to you how much it opens up in your life if you let it. So, you know, before I even finished this script, that song came up. Yeah. I don't know that man from Adam, but it came up, and I was in the middle. My heart and soul were in this script, and I heard it was on he'd obviously paid for a week. He's not huge. He's a known folky country
artist,
pop guy in the middle of
artist,
America, literally right in the middle of America. I didn't know him from Adam, but there was this song, and I stopped scrolling for a second and went, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that, and I know where it's going to go in my film. And this was in end of 23. And then I was like, yeah, but how? For all I know, he's massive. And then you literally do your homework. Okay, he's got 10,000 followers. That's not like being a country music Hall of Fame artist. Who's he with? Record label?
We just asked him.
We just asked him.
We just asked him.
We
told him
oh, now
about
get
the
this. Sorry, I have had cocaine. I haven't.
No, he hasn't.
But I do talk a
he
lot.
Hasn't.
Get this. Do you want to know how weird life is? I'm neither a drug addict nor a whore. But this story. So once I got to know him and had his email, and he went, listen, man, I haven't done that before. I've never had a song. He said, send me the script. I was like, oh, God, as if he's going to read it. He did read it, and he loved it. He didn't ask where it would go. We were busy negotiating. He sent me the song from the album, and it's not that. This was him performing just to promote it in a church hall. Oh, yes. And I went, oh, no. I had to say to him, I don't like the album version that you've let us have. The version you put on Instagram. He went, that was just me in a church hall promoting it. I went, yeah, I want that. He said, oh my God. I had an argument with my manager who on that day, I said, let's just do it on your phone. He went, no, let's get the DAT recorder out, let's record this. And he went, oh, for God's sake, just do it on your phone. And his manager insisted on recording it properly. And thank God. Because he said, not only does that mean you don't have to go through the label, because that is just an extra recording of the song. Yes, the rights are the same. But it meant we had the exact recording that my ears fell in love with. And then, a week later, he said, hey, my wife says hi. They live in the middle of nowhere in America. And I went, right. He said, yeah, apparently you had sex in 1999.
What? You haven't told me this.
Yeah, now I've only slept with a handful of people, but it just so happened one of my only one-night mishaps was with his wife.
Oh, Joe.
So the world is very small, and nothing is wasted. Not even a grope in Stratford-upon-Avon is wasted. It goes to show you never know what's going to pay off. And she spoke very highly of me.
Well, thank God for that.
Yeah.
It could have
and
gone
we got the rights
wrong.
very, very cheap.
Just
but
think
then when you did the edit...
Oh, sorry, that's what you asked me about.
Yeah.
So we shot this whole thing. She goes on a walk, and me and Charlie, our amazing editor, we did not, on Anne's advice, we had no guide tracks. It really helps a composer. No. Massive recommendation to people. Do not put guide tracks down. It frees up the composer to use their own stuff. But I knew about this song going on that walk, the slap on, and it would get to the end. we edited it without the song. Charlie went, do you want to try and do it like a pop video and make it work to the song? I went, no, let's get the story right with the pictures, and then we'll cross our fingers and put the song on. So we worked for 2 days on that sequence. We really liked the edit, and we went, right, it's time. And he loaded the song on, and he went, where do you want it to start? I went, start it as soon as the second snap. Just put it on. We'll see how far out we are, how much we're going to have to go back and fiddle and fiddle and finesse and fiddle and fiddle. Here we go. This will be the next week of our life. Bang. You saw exactly what it was. The song fit exactly to where we wanted it. It's there has been so much of that on this film. It's a little nerve-wracking going on to make more films, because you kind of, it's what's that? Beginner's luck, grasshopper thing, But who knows? Oh God, I exhaust myself. Sorry.
One before I hand over to the audience, one more question.
Oh,
Talk
Christ.
to us about the
else.
underwater swimming pool scene and how easy or difficult that was, because I mean those sort of scenes, the assumption is always it's going to be quite difficult.
Yeah.
Sometimes
they're
not. Go on.
It was tricky. It was tricky on a few counts. I mean, all praise to Sarah Jane's incredible performance. But also on that day, you write these things, and because it was only in the pool at the villa, but it turned out it was. She'd never. I've done a bit of underwater. It's not something everyone's done. It's a weird thing, and it wasn't very comfortable. So we had a little rehearsal the night before, and she couldn't actually do it. Stay down. I'd say, watch, I'll do it, and it didn't help. I never do that as a director with the acting. Look, I'll give you a line reading.
Like this.
But I did understand how to keep yourself underwater, and I was trying to explain it, but she wasn't comfortable. So then I had a bum bag that I wore as a director all day long, and my life was in it. So I took everything out of my bum bag, and went down the road, found a few rocks, put them in the bum bag, and I put it up, and I got her to put it under her swimming costume. So it just gave her enough ballast that it wasn't so heavy that she was stuck down there, but it meant she did sink a bit. And she was able, with her legs, to push herself back up, no trouble. She's not, put loads of rocks in your pocket and jump in the Thames.
What could possibly go wrong?
What could go wrong? And obviously I was down there as well, but so it was a sort of 1 or 2 take wonder. So a lot of rehearsals with me doing it. But then having to explain to her, which she thought was strange at first, that I said, look, to stay under, your hands need to do this. But also, she's like, but it looks silly. I said, I think you look like an angel. And also then you really see the decision, because you can interpret it however you want as an audience, what it means. But there's a decision to go up, and it's really clear. But she was really brave on that day, actually. It wasn't comfortable. I don't think she enjoyed it.
Let's get some audience questions. Yes. Do we have some hands? Yes, one right in the middle here. Yes, that's you.
Yes. Hello. Oh my God, it's so good.
Yay!
Incredible. I don't know. I don't think I'm overthinking these things, but visually, when you have something like the colour red, that for me seemed to appear quite a lot, and then the lollipop and sort of those kind of decisions, or like the deck chair in the middle of the two of them in that moment that they were sitting there in the sun. Do you make those decisions when you're writing? Do they happen kind of whilst you're filming? Is it really purposeful, or is it just something that happens and you go, oh, this would be nice in the moment?
The purposeful version. I want to hand half of that to Elliot Milson and half to me. Yeah, but very purposeful. The red suitcase, stealing from your people you love as well. I just watched a lot of great French films and stole like a lunatic, But yeah, absolutely, it is by design. And I did storyboard the film, and I can't draw, so that was a long process. But it was worth it. And we had 10 days prep. We almost had as much prep out there as shooting. Yeah, so, yeah.
Straight behind.
It's a beautiful film.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Very heartfelt. The silent film aspect of it is wonderful. And having dialogue against a silent film actor is also, I've not seen that, very original. Were you studying silent film to look for these kind of moments to tell a story without dialogue?
I have been my whole life. I grew up unhealthily addicted to Harold Lloyd, silent film specifically. So I didn't even realise, but he's shaped my entire imagination, Harold Lloyd specifically. So I've always loved non-dialogue stuff. I was very into physical theatre as an actor when I first started, not dance, just throwing myself around a lot was my thing. I've been a skateboarder all my life. So the kind of kinesthetic human bodies in space thing is my bag. But then I've never made a feature film. Doesn't mean it will translate. So I owe it to the actors as well, and the rehearsals. They were really open to quite a pedantic first take. I always said, I'm going to give you all the freedom in the world after I've got my weird version. So I was, we actually rehearsed with the stage directions read. I, as an actor, would fucking hate that. God bless these guys. I said, it's so strangely specific. Can we just get this exactly, and then we'll do whatever? And, free stuff did come in. But so
it was a very strange table read. Where it was mainly myself and Sarah Jane, me talking and her just sitting there.
And a lot, and so many stage directions, which an amazing actor called Philip Cumbus read. And also people said, Joe, this isn't a feature film because the page length was only like 65 pages. But of course I said, look, it's all right because that bit of a page actually is going to play out like 2 minutes.
And it's a funny thing being the actor opposite somebody who's that silent, because you start looking for micro signals, which is kind of amazing. It makes it a very active environment to work in, because you're not just relying on a cue, on a verbal cue. You're relying on something in someone's eyes or someone really looking away.
I said to Sarah, so sorry, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, I think David's timing in the dialogue sections that you have with Sarah Jane, like her in the cafe when she writes, you just do it so perfectly. You're just waiting for her to write, and you don't want to sort of interrupt her, but on the other hand, you're a man who doesn't like silence. And I just think your whole timing of it is so convincing. And but you're right. You're looking for tiny little signs.
The stakes are just a bit different. And Joe created this great environment where, like you say, we did a very prescriptive take, and then it was a different vibe. It was looser, but I think we always came back to the prescriptive version. Because it was so well written, it was so well observed, that the more we could attach ourselves to that and be unafraid of silence. It was our friend, and then it became, through Anne's music, silence becomes a character, it becomes a voice.
All those, I think Sarah Jane said to me, the joke was in the house that I've written you the part of your life because, brilliant, you're in a lead in a movie, you've got no lines to learn, next to no lines to learn. And that was the kind of running gag, I've written you the easiest gig of your life, but she said it was the hardest thing she ever did because there's no hiding behind your tricks. And we all as actors have ways we do things with dialogue, and it's like, I do this thing where I kind of hesitate and then whatever. We have tricks we do with our... And she couldn't rely on any of her tricks. And it was really interesting, first couple of days, just getting her to... Because she'd sort of look away a lot. I'd say, you've got to just look at him. Because you're not speaking, I need both your eyeballs all the time. And the audience need both of her eyeballs. And they're amazing eyeballs. And it works, Yeah, fascinating.
There was a question here.
Hi, thank you. That was just unbelievable. I was myself speechless. I was so, and just to the point of the being drawn in through the silence, that is absolutely true also for an audience member. It's all that space that you give to the silence, but of course then it's drawn even more through the music. So it's incredible. And that is just an incredible score. Thank you so much for giving us that. When you were in your creative process, how much was the natural surrounding, was that a springboard for your musical imagination, or was anything, or was it just the action? I mean, what were the kind of triggers for you as a composer?
Well, it's very interesting to write music for a film where the leading protagonist is indeed silent, because the music really sort of has to underline her inner and unspoken personality even more. And I think there's a couple of parts in the music where the music is probably more, not exactly strident, but a bit more sort of forceful than I would have normally done it. There's the opening, quite near the opening, where it's the first time we see her with the canister when she goes down to the beach. I thought, well, this is a time for the audience. It's like, pay attention here, because what's going on with her is something really, really deep. And we're not going to learn straight away what it is, but I'm trying to sort of draw the audience in and have this really quite strong, big theme. I mean, there's nothing happening apart from she's sitting on a bench and opening a canister, but the music is sort of, quite stirring. So there are occasions where it's not exactly the action that's spurring on the music, but the inaction, if you like. But also, what we found quite difficult, what we pondered about was the ins and the outs of the music, because there are some lovely silent passages where they're sitting outside the villa and nothing much is happening and time is passing. Where should the music come in? Where should the music end? How do we sort of get in and out of those spaces? And so that was something that we did ponder a bit, didn't we?
Yeah, and brilliant sound design really helped, because that's always the way of joining, the sound of the palm tree brings us back to,
the wind. The wind was very useful.
It's very windy island.
It is a very windy island. And the wind gave us some nice sort of punctuation points to come in and out. So that's a very long-winded answer to your question. So it's a bit of action, a bit of inaction, and a bit of sound, the sound of the environment as well. They all sort of should work together.
It's incredible.
Thank you so much.
Can we get any other questions out here? Oh, one over here.
I was just going to ask, the decision, for the lead character to be mute, did that idea come straight away? I know you said in one of the shorts before, it was unintentional it happened that she didn't actually have any words.
Yeah.
Was that something when you initially wrote those 3 pages down, you thought, this is what it's got to be, or did that come later on?
It was there right at the start, yeah. I thought, and then I had to be very specific. In this world we live in, quite rightly, I don't want to just invent a syndrome. So this is very specifically traumatic mutism, which is different to selective mutism. And it really does happen. I thought of it, and then I had to go and check, does this really exist? I love that I have not told you what happened to her. Clearly something happened to her, and I hope, I don't know how many people saw it today, but I hope that's how many different versions of what happened to her happened in this room today. I hope you all had your own story for her. But traumas happen to people, and they don't speak sometimes for a few weeks, months, very rarely more than a year, traumatic mutism. And quite often, I had written that she does then speak in anger. I'm very interested in anger as not being an entirely negative thing, and I've done years of anger management myself, and it's a really interesting thing. And sure enough, the person I spoke to at the Autism Society, not autism,
Mutism.
Forgive me, I did speak to them as well, the Mutism Society, said, no, this is right. She said 9 times out of 10, someone won't speak for 5 months, and then their husband will put something in the wrong drawer, and they say, for God's sake, Derek, it goes over there. And it will... That is quite often how it's broken. Anger can, it's really interesting. So anyway, it was there from the start. And also, God bless the MA again. I chose to do my final thesis-y thing on silent protagonists in cinema, and I studied everything from, Shape of Water to Wallace and Gromit. All silent people, and there's a lot more of it than you think. There hasn't been a lot for a while, but it's a beautiful thing because it does make you pay attention.
Any other questions out there? No?
Thank you.
That's excellent. So, Anne, what's next for you? What are you working on? What have you been working on? What will you be working on?
Well, as There's lots of connections in this world. A few months ago, Joe was in a very, very fine stage production of the Forsyte Saga.
Yes.
And it just so happens that I have been scoring a new adaptation of the Forsyte Saga for ITV, which we have finished and is now on its way. And season 2 has been commissioned.
Brilliant.
So we're doing that. I'm just about to start on a David Walliams film.
Great.
Okay.
David Walliams writes these wonderfully funny and scurrilous novels for children, and this is called Thing, and it's extremely funny, and I'm looking forward to that. And the usual nonsense.
So modest. David?
I just finished season 2 of a drama called Obituary, which is season 1 is on Netflix here at the moment, and it's about I run a shitty little newspaper in the west of Ireland, a tiny town, and I hire a young woman to write the obituaries, but she only gets paid if someone dies. And she's like, how am I going to make any money? I say, well, I don't know, maybe you should start killing people. So she does. So it's about a young female serial killer in the west coast of Ireland. Season 2. I hope there are enough people left in the town. But so that's and I'm in rehearsals for Girl from the North Country, which is the Bob Dylan. I don't want to say musical because it's not. It's a play that music happens in. That Conor McPherson wrote and is directing, and we're going into the Old Vic.
Oh, funny!
Spiritual home.
Yeah.
Love
So
it.
that's me for the summer.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And we've just offloaded Joseph last week because we've been playing the amateur for a few weeks. Just when you think we've seen the back of you, you're back here with Signs of Life.
Exactly.
You're in a short film here as well, aren't you? And what's next?
Trying to pay my rent, chasing my tail, chasing my children, and writing every day for a couple of hours. There's a lot of that. So a film I co-wrote is finished and will be hopefully in this festival next year. But I didn't direct it, but I'm in it, and I wrote it with Matthew Hope, who's an amazing director. That's called Empire of Lies. It's about a conspiracy theorist stuck in a camper van in a field. I've just finished this week my next film as writer-director. The screenplay. Sorry, Jesus, I haven't shot it. And people go, oh great, Joe does Ken Loach with gags, lovely. My next film is like sort of the weirdest horror film you've ever seen. So I've finished the screenplay, but that's only draft 1, so there should be another 9 drafts of that, and 18 months raising the money, and then I'll get that made. And I've also written a novel, so I'm writing a lot. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Greedy.
Yeah.
And the more important question, I know it's coming up at
KIF,
isn't it? Signs of Life is at KIF, isn't it?
Yeah, so
where
very
else
quickly, amazingly, we have distribution for this. It's coming out, Bulldog Films are distributing it UK and Ireland, unbelievable. Movie House is selling it all over the world in theory. But the main thing is around about September the 5th, this will exist in a handful of cinemas and on digital. So but it officially exists already because we're doing festivals. So it's a massive favour. Anyone who's seen this, if you can put a calendar reminder, 1st of September, to find a way of introducing this film to at least one other human being, that would be amazing. And around about that time, we're on Instagram, Signs of Life Film 1 or something. And you're allowed to review us on Letterboxd and IMDb, and it really, really makes a difference. It honestly, 5 great reviews there with an indie film that costs tuppence halfpenny is incredibly helpful. If you could be asked to review it on those places, it's amazing. Yeah, so thank you.
And then all that leaves is for me to ask you all to give one final round of applause to these wonderful people. Thank you.
Have a cup of beer.